Hi and welcome to another Excel at the Office video. In this video I have created for you a team annual sales tracker template, and I'm going to run through what the template does and some of the features I've used along the way, because sometimes it's useful to learn features of Excel by actually creating real world reports rather than just showing you, oh, this is how you format something, this is how you merge cells. So I wanted to show them in action in the creation of something. And also I hope you find this team sales tracker useful. So bear with me a moment, I'm a bit bunged up with a cold, so apologies if the sound's not the best, but I'll try and run you through anyway. So we're going to, one thing I wanted to show you on the ribbon here, and I happen to be using Office for Mac, but it's the same pretty much when you're using Office for Windows. On the View tab of the ribbon, I like to display the grid lines off, because that just makes it a lot cleaner and it doesn't look so technical then. I can also, on my top level view option, I can turn off the ribbon, and on Excel for Windows you'll have a kind of a pin button or unpin over here, and that just helps maximize more of the view so I can run you through this sales tracker report. So what I've done here is provided a template you can use for your team sales, and I've done it for particular years that may be helpful. So this automatically calculates a total, this table underneath the chart here, a total summing up all of your team members. And you might notice I've used characters from the cult and more recently hit TV series Trailer Park Boys, which is a lot of fun. So as I'm calculating these team totals, you'll see I've used a formula here in the top bar where basically I'm summing up the cells in that table for that year, and I've left you some spaces to add other team members, or if there's too many there, by all means delete some rows and replace with your own team. So that's your basic formula, the sum formula. But I've just precursored that with so that it doesn't provide any errors or when it's got nothing in there, just to tidy it up. I've used a is blank calculation just to precede it. So for example, when it goes blank and I delete all that data, the formula also brings back blank information, whereas if I didn't have that piece of information preceding it, it would add it up as 0. So that's just my preference, but you can use that as you prefer. But it's just showing some of the formula functions I've used along the way, which is quite helpful for kind of ignoring those if statements. I'll do another video on that because they're great for preceding your formulas with, just in case there's any errors or the cells are blank, and it stops the thing coming back with NA or other stuff that's going to mess up your chart. So come into the chart, it's just a clean, clear-cut design which just simply looks at this data in the summarized totals here. I can show you one handy trick with Excel. If you want to quickly get an appraisal of other rows of data with a line chart, you can simply, you'll see when you select it, it shows you what it's referring to. In these highlighted blue box is the data points, and the top box are the axis labels. So I've formatted the chart so that it, or pointed the chart at this, but you in Excel you can drag this and move it to say, or let's have a look at Jim Leahy's sales for the 5 years. Oh dear, his sales were great in 2018 and 2019, but they've been on a downward trend. And let's have a look at Ricky Lafleur. well, he's on a slightly increasing trend and stable since 2020 or so. So when you're interpreting data, this is useful to point out because I'll probably do a dedicated statistical interpretation video, but before we get too technical on that, I just want to point out what I'm using here in the numbers is a random number generator for which I've used a calculator. I've used the formulas to calculate a random number anywhere between 10,000 and 100,000 for the year. And anytime I kind of update a formula, it refreshes the random number generator. If I save the document, the random number generator goes again. So these, bear in mind, these are purely random numbers. However, even random numbers can create the appearance of trends. So just be careful when you're trying to interpret trends that you know what's going on behind it, because actually in the real world you could possibly get trends that are completely random, as I showed you with Mr. Leahy's sales that year. So this, for example, random number, you might interpret that as a sales dip between 2018 and 19, then a recovery, and then a dip to 2022, but that's based entirely on random numbers. So what that means is it could have happened regardless of what you did. So that's just touching the surface a little bit about interpreting statistical information and being careful not to attribute too much meaning on it unless you really know what's going on. But coming back to the sales tracker template, in terms of the title here, I'll show you the part on the ribbon how I did that. So on the home bar of the ribbon, that is simply formatting the text. So I've chosen Arial. I think the default in Excel is really unhelpfully Calibri, which is a really horrible squashed text and not very legible or accessible. So I prefer Arial, a lot more clear cut, and always at least 12 points for accessibility. I like to oversize things, particularly with titles, so I've made this Arial 36 and I've made it bold. There's a bit of a lag on my computer there. And what I've done also, you might notice it's bridging lots of different cells. So what I've done there is use this feature called merge and center. So that merges cells together. As you'll notice here, I've unmerged them and then I can merge them again. So that just gets everything nice and centrally covered there. Over here, I've used a simple merge cells again, but this time I'm merging 2 cells across with 4 down, and I've typed in their top 2022 team member. And one handy thing in an Excel, if your things aren't aligning properly, normally when you press enter, that moves you to the next cell. But one little trick you can use if you want to use enter like you're wanting to create a new paragraph with text, you use alt and enter, and that creates you a new row of text just in case things aren't aligning. So that's a simple formatted thing, and I formatted it like a table in the sense that I use this borders feature. So I've gone for a thick box border, but what I did before that, I chose my line colour to be a different from the normal simple black line, just to keep it in keeping with the themes. In this box, I've used a VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUPs are helpful for when you want to pick out particular points of data or marry up data across 2 different databases you've got. But in this, I'm just using it simply to pick out from this list who had the best sales in 2022. And the random number generator so far is telling us that's Mr. Leahy himself. Not bad, Mr. Leahy. So that's quite a handy feature just to kind of demonstrate on this dashboard view to give you that strategic oversight before you delve down into the team data. So similarly, I've created a table here using those cell outlines to make it a bit more attractive. So I've typed in here the team names, and in here, as I mentioned earlier, is a round between formula to create a random number between the two values. So when you do that, equals, as you would start any formula, the function is called round between. You enter the minimum number in the first part of the brackets, comma, and then the maximum number you want it between. Press enter and it does it all for you. So that round between, if you imagine, that can be quite a useful feature if you are running some kind of competition and you want to objectively select or randomly select a winner. Say 100 people enter. If you give each person a kind of numerical value between 1 and 100, and if you type around between brackets 1, 100, close brackets, that will present you back a random number. Let's do it now with this one. So I'm just going to choose 1 there and 100 here. There we go. Number 99 is our winner, and that's a really nice little feature you can use for transparent and objective competition draws that are the utmost of fairness, because there's no favoritism in the AI behind Excel. So that's quite a handy formula. Over here I've used the Sparklines feature, which is really quite a handy view. So remember earlier, one way we can review this chart is to change what it's looking at simply by dragging the data section. But what you'll see is the shape of that chart, with that kind of hump in the middle, like a mountain shape now, is reflected in this spark line. So you don't actually need that on, you don't need to do that for everybody, because I've included these spark lines to give you a visual overview of where the trend's going based on the data in here. So that's quite helpful. And to aid the visual overview, I've also done some conditional formatting as well of this area to highlight the highest numbers in a darker green colour. So the bigger the number, the better. So I've highlighted that accordingly, because these are sales figures, of course. And then the lower numbers, rather than highlight red, I've just gone for plain white, just because it would just look a bit busy otherwise. But what I've done over here as part of your dashboard is give an indicative rank for each person. So again, the key part of this formula is the rank formula, and I'd recommend that's quite helpful. So what I'm doing is creating, I'm using the rank formula. I'm looking at the cell I'm interested in, so in this case it's G21, comma, within the range that I'm interested in. So what rank is that cell within that range, and then please provide me back with the result. And in this case it's 16. And I've preceded that again with some, just cover the if statement, just in case there's some errors in that, and it will highlight to me where those errors are, or where the blanks are, rather and not include it in the ranking if it's blank. So for example, if you've got more team members, you can drag down these formulas here, and you see it's not creating ranks because these cells are blank, whereas that would get all messed up if I just use the rank feature. So I'm trying to kind of accommodate this for you here, but you might not need that when you've fixed it on your own, whether it's 5 team members or 20 team members. But the rank formula is really helpful. And then added to that rank formula, I've created conditional formatting based on the number presented. So the conditional formatting, again, under the Home tab, pretty much everything on the, or most things you will use tend to be on the Home tab of the ribbon. Of all the hundreds and hundreds of options you can choose, conditional formatting will be one of your particularly used friends in this case. So I used just some highlighting the cells, and I used the top and bottom rules. So the top cell and the bottom cell, and I just highlighted it as the top cell as green background, the bottom cell red. And I also used the green circles and red circles to highlight. I didn't want to just highlight the top and bottom. I wanted to give you an indication of what the top 4 or 5 were and the bottom 4 or 5. And everything else is grey in the middle. So that's, when you go into this, highlight that range, and you can adjust the conditional formats by going to Manage Rules, and you'll see those are the rules that I've set here. And you can edit these should you wish. If you don't like grey, you might prefer no circle, for example. Okay, so that's the main features I've used here. What I've done also is, if I show you down in the bottom here, these are the different quick buttons to view it in a different way. I tend to only ever use this button, which is the normal grid line view, or spreadsheet view, and the page break preview. So you can see here the page breaks are set so that this is the only area that gets printed, the extent of what's within the blue lines, so that when I go to the print, you'll notice it will present nicely on one page for you. So if I go back to this view, back to the normal view, and I'm going to minimize the ribbon, just move that out of the way so I can see more of the screen to work with. I've given some hints and tips you might want to follow along here. Just to the side, it won't be included in your report if you need to share it with anyone else through printing it or saving it as a PDF. When you save it as a PDF, it'll only save what's in the printable view, so you can create a static snapshot that way. And I'll show you in another video the process of saving things as a PDF. But for now, so I've added some things in here. These are simple shapes with text in them, and so what I've suggested you do, you can completely delete all this data and enter your own values in here, and that will change according to what you enter. If you need more team members, you can insert rows above here, and that will automatically get calculated in this chart above, or delete if there's too many and it's looking a bit busy. Or if teams aren't your thing, rather than teams, you can simply interpret this a different way. If you just change the word team where you see it, and instead you can call this a product and your sales tracker. So instead of top 2022, top product, and so on. I'm talking about products now. I'm interested in products because that's how I want the report. And so you might have a product line 1. And a handy feature of Excel is you don't need to type these things out. You can just click the corner there and drag it down, particularly if there's a numerical identifier in it, and it will predict what you're likely to type in those. So that's a bit of a time saver there. Or sometimes it's a time saver, sometimes it doesn't quite work like that. But depending on your product lines, you might want to compare their sales over time. and see the trends overall or the sparklines. And if you want any other support or reports, you can always contact me on my website at excelattheoffice.com. So the final thing I'll show you, because I've really messed this up now, it looks empty, a barren Excel report, completely a nightmare. I've made so many changes, I don't know what I've done. This is now not working, so if ever you do that and you do something wrong, you don't know where you stand, this undo button is a really handy feature where you can just go back to a state that you actually liked. So I've got it back to the normal state there. What I'll do with this template is I'll save it as or upload it, sorry, as I normally do on an associated blog with this video. So you can find that blog in the links below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please share it with anyone that you think might find it useful. I hope you like it, and let me know in the comments any feedback or how I can make this report better, and I'll update a new version on my blog. So for now, that's all. I hope you enjoyed this, found it useful, and I'll see you again next time.